Hello everybody, thank you for joining me today. Today you are joining me in front of my bookshelves. I've put together a stack today of books that I read when I was a little girl that I think would be great books to start and encourage young readers to start reading. The very first book I ever read and completed, Escape to Witch Mountain by Alexander Key. There was a movie made back in the 60s as well, a Disney movie, and this is the movie cover. It's pretty cool to have this old one. This was the 5th printing in 1975, but it was first published in 1968. This one is a really fun book. It's about twin kids, Tia and Tony, who have the ability to communicate with one another psychically, and as well as a couple of other psychic abilities. And they have been growing up in an orphanage, and then their abilities attract the attention of some not so great people. As their memories are resurfacing, they are remembering that their family is here somewhere and they need to get back to their family. You have to read the rest of it to find out. Alexander Key also has lots of good books for young readers. He's got another one called The Forgotten Door, which is also a sci-fi one. And I believe he's the one who wrote Island of the Blue Dolphins, Native American Indian girl whose island gets hit by a tsunami, and all of her people evacuated beforehand, but not her. Next, this one is The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. It's basically about two neglected and spoiled children who have grown up kind of solitary, and they're not very good with people and life in general. And then they slowly start playing outside. They find a key that leads to a secret walled-in garden with the help of another little boy, and they start playing there, and they start taking care of the garden. They weed, they plant seeds, they plant bulbs, they water things. As the secret, forgotten, neglected garden comes back to life, so do the children. Their health also improves, and it's not in a magical way, it's more in that just showing like what a little tender love and care does for a person or a garden. So it's a really, really cute, sweet book. Frances Hodgson Burnett, she also wrote another one that I read when I was little, The Little Princess. This one, much sadder. It's about a little girl in the early 1900s. In the movie, in the 1990s movie, her father goes off and joins the war. I believe it's World War I he's fighting in. In the book, the dad goes off for business, so she is sent off to boarding school in the meantime while he is off at war. And then he dies, and she goes from being the little princess at the school who has this nice room to being a penniless orphan who the headmistress of the school then employs as a servant girl. I will say that I believe that the movie has a happier ending. Full disclosure, I did actually stop reading it halfway through when I was first reading it as a little girl. It was just so sad. But anyway, Little Princess, Frances Hodgson Burnett writes some great children's books. They're really fun. Little Princess is really good, but sad. Both great books and very fun reads. I know that this is where my love of lockets comes from, and this is where my love of keys come from, and this is where my love of memory loss comes from. So those are some story tropes that I like, and I'm like, I'm going through, I'm like, that's where these are from. This is the first one that I should have finished reading, and it was the second one I ever read, and that is The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis. You know this series, it's the Chronicles of Narnia. The books are short, they're like 110 pages each. It's about 4 siblings that travel through a wardrobe to a magical world where animals can talk, and there's a white witch, and there's the great Aslan, the lion, and the whole time they're in the magical world, no time passes in the real world. This one was originally published in 1950. This edition, I believe, came out in 1977. This is a great one to get your kids onto because they're very quick, and then it's not just one book that they're reading here. This opens the door to the whole series of books, which is a 7-book series. So right away you go from maybe having a kid who hasn't read any books to a kid who's read 7 books. Next after that we have another one of my favorite authors, John Christopher, who wrote the Tripod series. I say series because I was going to say Tripod trilogy, but this is the 4th book, which is the prequel book. This is When the Tripods Came. It's a futuristic sci-fi story about an alien invasion that takes place, and then this one specifically follows the invasion, and the trilogy follows the human race, I think a couple hundred years in the future. The original copyright for this one was 1988. The trilogy, though, like I said, came out earlier. I think that one came out early 70s or late 60s. Again, these books are short, only about like 120 pages. He also has done many other books, including, he's written these books here. The ones that I have read from this stack are The Guardians and The Lotus Caves. Those are both one-offs, they're both standalones. Moving along. Now this is another book. This is one that is for your young readers, but that have been reading for a little while and they're ready for more of a challenge. And that is The Hobbit by J.R.R Tolkien. As you know, it's Tolkien. So it's not necessarily a young reader book, but it is one that I read when I was like 11, 12. And it was so much fun. It's, the Hobbit, who lives in a hole in the ground, who one day is beset upon by some unexpected visitors, namely a wizard and 13 dwarves who have come to request his assistance in burgling a dragon and reclaiming their long-lost home in the Lonely Mountain. When they're ready for more of a challenge, and I'd say, like I said, I was 11 and 12 when I read this book, and I loved it. And there were, of course, some words I didn't understand, but it helped to build my vocabulary. Ones like this are great for travel, because a long car ride could get boring. You could only watch clouds for so long. Long car rides, long plane rides, and it doesn't require a battery. The Hobbit is a lot easier and a lot more fun than the Lord of the Rings trilogy. This one leads right into this one. So once you've gotten everybody interested in The Hobbit, then you just take them right over to the Fellowship of the Ring, and there you go. So you get them started on one of these, and if it's part of a series, then you've got them going and hooked and reading on all of them. Now, of course, I couldn't do a book about young readers and series and fantasy books without bringing up Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Again, you get them reading this one, and then you've got them reading 6 more books. And these are chunksters. These are, I do think that J.K. Rowling, she is the one that sort of set the new standard when it comes to word count and book length. So, younger kids' books can still be here, but if they really want them to be closer to this now. If you have no idea what Harry Potter is a story about a boy living in a cupboard under the stairs at his aunt and uncle's house who receives a letter one day informing him that he is in fact a wizard, and he has been accepted to the magical school of witchcraft of Hogwarts, witchcraft and wizardry. When his parents died when he was a baby, he survived, and he did not survive a car crash, he survived a murder attempt. And when he survived, the Lord Voldemort died. So he is quite famous in the wizarding world, and you'll just have to read the books or watch the movies to find out what happens. I think I read this one when I was 12. So I would advise for these books specifically, starting the first one when your kids are 11, because that's the age of Harry in this book. He's 11 years old. And in the second book, he's 12. So I would really advise doing one Harry Potter book a year, where starting at age 11, if you want the kids to have the full fun experience, and have it be that at the start of the new school year, they get to read the next Harry Potter book. Now, clipping right along, but going back to more younger readers, you can start as early as 7 or 8. Little House in the Big Woods by Laura Ingalls Wilder. These are biographical books. They're based on her life and her family in the pioneer days of America in the 1800s. It covers her life from age, I think she's 7 or 8 herself in this book. 7 or 8, and all the way up until she's married and has kids of her own. It's a true story. So it takes place in the 1870s to the 1880s. The first one was published initially in 1932. This specific edition came out in 1971. And there are 7 books in this series. Another book, Pocahontas, True Princess. This one was written by Marie Haynes. It's a historical book about the life of Pocahontas, Princess Pocahontas. If you grew up watching the Disney movie where Pocahontas is like 19 years old and there's like a romance between her and John Smith, you should really read this, because this is the truer account where Pocahontas was actually only like 11 or 12, and she viewed John Smith more as a brother, kind of almost like a pet, not a romantic love interest. And so it's written just like any other children's or young adult book where there's a main character telling you. And this is a first in a duology, with the second one following her son, Pepsi Canoe. It's another series here. I don't have book 1, but I have book 2 and 3. I read more when I was like 12 or 13. It's the Wrinkle in Time series by Madeleine L'Engle. This is the second one, A Wind in the Door. And then we have the third one, A Swiftly Tilting Planet. Again, these are more like short, easier reads. The first one is A Wrinkle in Time, tesseracts and time travel and space travel and all that sort of multi-dimensional sci-fi stuff told through the lens of 14-year-old girl and her like 8-year-old brother. Journey the two siblings make to find and rescue their father, who has accidentally wound up on a planet many light years away. I'm just gonna say, Madeleine L'Engle is another great author. J.R.R by Charlotte Bronte. This is probably one of the first classics I read, if not the first classic I read. Being orphaned, to not great school life, to becoming a governess for this man's ward. She falls in love with the man. He asks her to marry him. She agrees to marry him, and then she finds out he already has a wife. Sorry, spoilers. These last two are books that I read as an adult, but they are for kids. And so I'll start with the one I read as a teenager, and that was Alex Rider, Stormbreaker. This one is, I believe, one in a 7 or 8 book series, and he is a teen spy. James Bond for kids. 2001. Yeah, so this one, early 2000s. 2001 for this one. Very fun little spy book. This is one I read only a couple of years ago, but it's very fun. Time travel series for kids. The Missing series by Margaret, Peterson, Haddix. I don't want to spoil this one, but I will say it's a time travel one using historical figures where the kids are historical figures, so it's like you learn a little bit about history while getting to have a fun time travel adventure story and a mystery to solve. I've read the first 2 or 3 of the series, but there's 8 books in the series, so again, another long, big series to get kids interested in reading. And that is that, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Let me know if you've read any of these series and what age you were when you read them. And let me know if there's any that you're interested in that you will be reading yourself or introducing to your own young readers. I hope you had a great day, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye!